Hey Thunkers, and welcome to part 2 of this tutorial where we will be building a scavenger hunt game app where you can pick your own avatar and play as that avatar. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 of this tutorial yet, go ahead and look at that first, where we learn how to design and program the app so that way you can pick your own avatar. So let's take a look at what we're going to be building today. This is a scavenger hunt game app where we actually use the image recognizer component. So here's how this game works. I'm going to pick an avatar, and then I will click Start. Now the first thing I have to find is a light. So I'll press the click button, and then I'll take a picture of the light in my room. Okay, so the last image of the light was correct, so correct changes to 1, and now I have to find a door. Okay, now I have to find a window. And then since I got 3 correct, I've now moved on to level 2. For example, if I take a picture of the wrong thing, so I'm trying to find a pencil, but I take a picture of the door again, it'll simply ask me to try again and find the pencil again. So I'll play a couple more rounds so I can get to round 6, which is when I'll win the game. Okay, so I continued playing the game and now I have 5 correct. The last thing I'll need to find is a bottle. So I will take a picture of a bottle. There we go, now I won, and if I wanted to, I can press start over and play again, maybe with a different character. So here's something I want you to notice. When we click live test, and we pick an avatar, and we click start, it looks like we went to a different screen, but in reality, we're still on the same screen, and all we did was hide some of the components that were already there and make some of the new components visible. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense to you yet, I'll teach you how to do that. Awesome, so let's start building. So we're going to pick up from where we left off in part 1 of this tutorial. So if you haven't seen that yet, please go check that out now. So we're going to work on the Avatar 1 screen, and everything that we do for the Avatar 1 screen, we also have to do for the Avatar 2 and Avatar 3 screen. So I'm going to walk you through all the steps on the Avatar 1 screen, and we'll do the exact same thing on the Avatar 2 and Avatar 3 screen. Remember that we don't have to add in any more screens. When we start playing the game, which happens when we click the start button, we're simply going to hide everything on the screen that we don't need anymore and make visible the things that we do want. So when we click start, we should see a label at the top that says what level we're on. We should see another label that tells us how many answers we have correct. We'll also see the image of our avatar, and we'll see a button that says click, where when we click it, we can actually take a picture of the item that we're trying to find. So 2 components that we need for sure are the camera. So go ahead and drop that in. And the other thing we need is the image recognizer component. The image recognizer component is the most magical part about our app. If we take a picture of something, it will be able to recognize what we took a picture of. Great. Now we'll add in 2 buttons, and I'm going to add them in right above this row. I'm going to rename the first one to be the Start Over button, and I can change the text that's displayed on the button over here. So I'll say Start Over, and I will rename the second button to be the Play button, and I can change the text of it to be Play. Now remember that when we first come to the Avatar 1 screen, these 2 buttons don't actually appear. So we're going to set the visibility of these buttons to false from the properties panel. So you can just click on the switch and it won't be visible anymore. And we're going to do that for both of these buttons. Now right above the image, I'm going to add in a label component. This is going to be the label that shows how many answers that we have correct. So I'll rename this to be the counter label. And I can just leave the text of it blank right now. And remember that I don't want to see it right away, so I'm going to make its visibility false. So notice how we still have more components on this screen, but our screen looks like what it originally looked like when we only had the start and back button. That's the power of visibility. So those are the only new components that we needed to add. Remember that you have to add the exact same components to the Avatar 2 screen and the Avatar 3 screens. So I'm going to go do that right now. Before we start programming, the last thing that we're going to do is add in some more images for our avatar. If you remember in the demo, every time I hit level 3 or level 6, my avatar would change. It would get a little bit bigger than what it was before. So I designed 6 more images on Canva, I saved it to my computer, and then I added it over here to the Files section in Thunkable. Great, let's go over to the Blocks editor and start programming. Again, all the programming that we do on Avatar screen 1, we're going to do the same programming on the Avatar 2 screen and the Avatar 3 screen. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to program is what happens when we click this Start button. Remember, we want to hide some of the stuff that's already on the screen, and we want to make the new components that we added visible so we can start playing the game. So we'll click on the Start button drawer and grab the When Start button click block. Now we want the main title to change from being the name of the avatar to say level 1. So we'll take the From Avatar title label text block and change this to level 1. Now if we live test and press the Start button, we'll see that the title changes to level 1. But there are still some things on here that we don't want to see anymore. So we're going to hide this row component that holds the 2 buttons and make it not visible. So we're going to come into the row 2 drawer, and we are going to get this component that says from row 2 set visible to false. Now we want to make the play button that we added in visible, and we also want to make the counter label visible. So we'll go into the counter label drawer and get the from counter label set visible to true, and we'll also go into the play button drawer and do the same thing. So we need some way of keeping track of how many questions we've gotten correct. So we're going to initialize a variable that's just going to increase every time we get a question correct. So I'll say initialize app variable, let's call it counter to, I'm going to the math drawer and pick 0. So before I start playing the game, I have 0 answers correct. When I get one right, it will change to 1, and we'll program that later on. So the other thing I want to do is change the text of the counter label. So I'll grab this block, the from counter label set text to block, and I'm going to go into text and grab this join. So I'll say something like correct and just add on the app counter variable. So the counter label will display correct followed by the number of answers that I got right. So let's take a look at what it looks like now. When I click start, I have my counter label and it's set to 0 right now. I have my image of my avatar. I have my description right here, which is going to change. It's actually going to show the item that we should be finding in our scavenger hunt. And we have the play button that when we click the play button, we can take a picture of the item that we're trying to find. Okay, so the next thing that we want to change is the avatar description label. We're going to change this to be the item that we're trying to find on our scavenger hunt. So we'll go to the avatar 1 description drawer and grab the first block that allows us to change the text. Now we're going to go to the text drawer again and grab this join component. The first part will say find a followed by a space. And now we need to figure out what goes in the second block. Here we want to fill in the item that we're trying to find. So to do that, we're going to have to make a list of items that we want to be able to find throughout the game. So I'll show you how to do that now. We're going to go to the variables drawer and initialize another app variable. We're going to call this scavenger word. Now we're going to make a list of items that we want to find. To add more items to your list, you can just click on this little button here and drag in another item. So my list is going to have 6 items. Now I'm going to go back into the list drawer and I will grab this component where it says in list and some list, get the first item of the list. So I can just put in the list I created here and attach this to scavenger word. So right now inside of scavenger word, we have the first item of my list, which right now is 1, but I want to change all these items to be something that I can find. So I can take a text block and maybe the item I want to find is a door. Likewise, I do the same for the rest of my 6 items. So this is my list. So the first thing stored in scavenger word right now is door because it's the first item of our list. So now we can go back to the start button, and the missing piece here is just the scavenger word variable. So the first thing that we'll see on our screen is find a door because that was the first item of our list. So I'll select and press start, and there we go. We're asked to find a door. So we are about halfway through the programming now. So I think that this would be a good place to pause for this video. In the next part, we'll learn how to program what happens when we click the play button, and we'll also figure out how to use the image recognizer component. So head on over to part 3.